this week's Top Gear, Honda challenges Ferrari with the first Japanese supercar. A glimpse of the past from Switzerland, exclusive cars from Monteverdi. And we look ahead to the Lombard RAC Rally and mark your card for next week's big event. Hello and welcome to this week's Top Gear. We're at Studley Castle in the Midlands, Rover's Marketing Institute, and the home of the British Motor Industries Heritage Trust, who are the custodians of a fine collection of classic British motor cars, including this glorious Rover Meteor from the 1930s with its special sporting Corsican bodywork. Now we're here to present these rather more recent Rover models to the winners of the Top Gear Radio Times Motor Show 90 competition, and we'll see those winners later in the programme. But we start tonight with Honda. Now, Honda, of course, duplicates part of the Rover range. Indeed, this 216 lookalike is in fact a Honda Concerto. It comes off exactly the same production line as the Rover at their plant at Longbridge, just a few miles away. Honda don't have a Mini equivalent, but they do have something that Rover lacks at the other end of the range. And Tiffany Dell has been driving their supercar on and around the Oulton Park Racing Circuit in Cheshire.
Talk of supercars and you think excitement and impracticality, the ultimate in performance, but nowhere to stow your golf clubs, great style and drama, but an unwilling thoroughbred fighting to wrest control from the macho male behind the wheel. When the Japanese talk of supercars, it comes out differently. The NSX looks okay and performs brilliantly, but maybe the engineers have done too good a job and designed out the character one associates with a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Maybe it's too much like a Porsche. That's not a 911, but a 944. Driving the NSX on the open road really is a very simple task. Honda wanted the car to be easy to drive, and certainly they've succeeded in doing that. All the controls are very standard, normal controls. Gear change, clutch, braking, it's all very light indeed. The engine has very good torque, which gives it great pulling power, so the second gear will take you from 0 to 90 miles an hour. In fact, it's too tall, so in some of these tight turns you need to drop down into first if you're hoping to enjoy some sporting performance. Really, it's rather too well house-trained for the public roads. After all, any supercar finds speed limits and narrow lanes hard to take. So the empty circuit at Oulton Park was a welcome release, particularly as the multitudes of journalists had wrecked the clutch on the only right-hand drive manual car in Europe. And that was only in 10,000 miles. Not the sort of reliability one expects from any sort of Japanese car. In creating their ultimate supercar, Honda have chosen a mid-engine layout with a 3-litre V6 engine mounted right behind the driver's seat. They've actually chosen not to go the turbocharged route, but instead the engine has all the very latest in high-tech engine design. There's variable timing, variable volume induction, and a sequential port fuel injection system. All this adding up to give the driver up to 274 horsepower as a maximum to play with. At the same time, they've tried to make the car as light as possible to make the very most out of this power that's available. They've created an aluminium monocoque, aluminium body panels, and aluminium suspension. All this to keep the weight down as much as possible. Even so, this package, when compared with its major competitors, is still heavier than Porsche's 911 Carrera 2 and doesn't have as good a power-to-weight ratio as Ferrari's 348. The interior is very road car basic. It's a very simple layout, and there's nothing futuristic in the instrumentation of this supercar. Space-wise, well, there's plenty of room for the driver and the passenger, but there's no room at all for my briefcase and no little parcel shelf for any knickknacks. Elsewhere, there's precious little space also. Under the bonnet, there's only room for the radiator, the anti-lock braking system, and the space-saver wheel, which needs to be deflated before you can use it. In the middle of the car, well, there's the engine, and that takes up all that space. While around at the rear, there is a small boot, just enough room for my luggage, but if I have to put the punctured wheel in, it just about squeezes in there. The racetrack is the proper place to play with all this power, but it also demonstrates the VTEC variable timing system is really wasted on the public roads. It comes in at 6,000 revs, which is 60 miles an hour in second, but a highly illegal 90 in third. Having said that, it really is a beautiful engine to drive. With a rev limit just over 8,000 revs, there is singing power from 6,000 all the way through. The braking is very, very good indeed. That 4-pot, 4-wheel ABS anti-locking working very well. And also the traction control system is very good indeed, only occasionally interrupting my power acceleration. Handling again, also very, very sure-footed, mild understeer turning in, and hardly a twitch of the tail as full power is added. So really, at smooth, high-speed driving, it's almost a faultless car. Of course, on a racetrack, you can try a little harder. And for preference, I would switch off the traction control system so I could slide the tail a bit more through the slower corners. Mild understeer, then I can put the power in, and then there's just a little wag of the tail as the rear wheel breaks its traction. Hard acceleration, third gear, 7,000. Third gear taking me to about 110 miles an hour before I need fourth gear. Back on the public roads, and straight away the supercar turns back into a saloon car. It really is a very, very easy car to drive. Everything is light, the controls easily come to hand. Now that was one of Honda's design criteria. They wanted to make a supercar that almost anybody could just get into and drive. And in that they've succeeded. It's as easy to drive as a Porsche's 944 S2. But then it does have all the impracticalities and lack of space of Ferrari's 348. So in a way, they've got either the best or the worst of both worlds. And it really depends what you're looking for when you're trying to buy a supercar. To sum up, the Honda NSX rates highly for its style, advanced engineering, and supercar performance combined with ease of driving. On the debit side is that lack of real character. Limited space, the poorly chosen gear ratios, and that price, nearly twice what it costs in Japan for exactly the same specification.
So once again, the price has been grossly inflated for the British market, but it hasn't stopped the orders piling in. There's already nearly a 2-year waiting list. People, it seems, will pay almost anything for exclusivity. And things don't come much more exclusive than a car made in Switzerland, a country not widely regarded as being a centre for automotive innovation. Nonetheless, it has produced one or two strong-minded individuals who've blazed their own trail in this field. Chris Coffey went to meet the man who once claimed to be Switzerland's only car maker.
It's an old idea. Find yourself a big engine, clothe it in elegant bodywork, and customers will beat a path to your door. At least, that's the theory that Peter Monteverdi employed when he started his career as a luxury car builder. But of course, everyone has to start somewhere. Monteverdi's father ran a successful car dealership and repair shop, so it was natural when he was only 17 he should design and build his own sports car based on Fiat 1100 components. But this was no impoverished kid building a special. By the age of 19, he'd bought his first Ferrari. His father died when he was only 22 and he had to take over the family business. But he was very successful at converting farmer customers into clients for Gran Turismo cars. And he soon became the youngest ever Ferrari importer into Switzerland. But his true love at that time remained racing cars. By the end of the 50s, Monteverdi had his own racing team and they were building these Formula 2 cars. In the end, they built 23 of them, sold to various customers. But his main interest was then in Formula One. He designed and built his own chassis, and with Porsche power, he was ready to go racing. However, on the car's first competitive outing at Hockenheim, oil sprayed onto a rear wheel, he lost control, hit a retaining wall, was thrown out, and the car then somersaulted on top of him. He ended up in Basel Hospital for several months, and that was an end to his racing career. So it was back to the boring old business of importing Ferraris, some of which, like this 1964 330 model, he still has in his collection. But there was soon a clash of opinion with the Italian company's charismatic founder.
Sometimes is Mr. Enzo Ferrari very difficult. He will not accept when I say the car must have automatic transmission or power steering. He is not unable to understand this because he say we must have 12-cylinder, a lot of noise and sport cars. This is not true because the cars, the man who is willing to buy an expensive car is normally in this time before old, and he is not young, and he like sport cars, but he need also comfort, and comfort is in a sport cars. When you are an old man, you must have an automatic transmission.
The solution? Develop a sports car of his own. This prototype was unveiled at the '67 Geneva show and set the framework for future models. Beneath the sleek shapes of most of the Monteverdi cars lay a chassis like this, relatively simple, square tube, but immensely strong. And into the chassis, Monteverdi slotted the well-proven Chrysler V8 engine, around 6.5 litres in varying states of tune. He usually used the TorqueFlite automatic transmission that would handle all that power reliably. Although the prototype did make it into limited production, Monteverdi's most popular model was the 375L, launched in 1968. At 2+2, it used the same engines but in a longer wheelbase, and it came closer to achieving the aim of a more refined Ferrari alternative than the original design. A variety of body styles followed, including a saloon and this convertible called the Palm Beach, which appeared in 1975. In common with the other versions, the interior was well trimmed, but rather functional in comparison with some of the car's competition. Customers were less likely to be disappointed by the car's performance. Road tests regularly achieved 0 to 60 times of 6 seconds and top speeds of over 160 miles an hour, though I well remember throttles jamming wide open on one example at very high speed on the test track. The company's most ambitious project was the mid-engined High, which promised even greater performance, though few were actually made. Oil price rises were making the environment for sports cars somewhat hostile, so Monteverdi turned his attention to off-road machines. The 1976 Safari was based on International Harvester components and was an attempt to introduce more luxury to this market sector. The inspiration was again a disagreement with the manufacturer whose cars he was importing into Switzerland, this time Range Rover.
We spoke together. We looked what we can do, and I said, listen, your Range Rover is not bad, but first you need automatic transmission, second you need a higher performance engine, and third you need, very important, 4 doors.
So Monteverdi went ahead and designed a 4-door Range Rover, and he was soon offering conversions several years before the factory's own 4-door car reached the market. You have to admit, it looks very similar to Range Rover's production model. Monteverdi's later cars were really coach-built versions of larger manufacturers' models. The Sierra of 1978 was essentially a restyled American Chrysler, and the Tiara was a modified Mercedes 450. That was the last Monteverdi car. Production ceased in 1982. Type approval and emission legislation was making car manufacture in handfuls an impossible proposition. The factory became a museum to include Monteverdi's and a collection of American, British and German sports cars, well over 100 in all. As to the future, Monteverdi's design activities continue, and he claims to have several new concepts on the back burner, waiting for the right time or for another manufacturer to show interest.
Monteverdi will be most recently remembered, of course, for buying the British Onyx Formula One racing team, insisting that it move to Switzerland from here and then closing it down before the end of the season to reappear who knows when. But now to the Top Gear Radio Times Motor Show 90 competition. We were, I must say, somewhat overwhelmed by the 25,000 entries. Those who took part, of course, recognise the photographs, but let me clarify them for those who didn't take part. So it starts with T for Testarossa, H for Hopkirk, Paddy Hopkirk, who won the Pirelli Classic Marathon, L for Le Mans 24-hour race, T once again for the Toyota Group C car, T again for Thruxton, the racing circuit, O for Nicholas Otto, the inventor of the Otto cycle, E for Elan, and R for Rover, not for rally as many people would have thought, because Rover, like Peugeot, started off making bicycles before they went on to cars. Shuffle those letters around, you end up with the winning word throttle. And the first two correct entries out of the brimming postbags were Ray Marrison from Lingfield in Surrey, who won the 216 GTI, and the Mini Cooper Special Edition was won by Suzanne Perry from Scarborough in Yorkshire. Now, to present the prizes, we have Nicholas Brett, the editor of the Radio Times.
Ray, congratulations.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Ray Marrison is the manager of a further education unit for young people with special needs in Lingfield. It is perhaps particularly appropriate that he should win the 216, as he's driven British Leyland or Rover cars more or less all his life, since he took his test in Austin 7.
And luckily here, I have keys to a Mini Cooper. Congratulations, that's fantastic.
Suzanne Perry owns a garage with her husband in Scarborough. She's very familiar with the Mini, as all her family drives them in grass track races with great success. In fact, this is her 7th Mini.
Great, thanks.
Well, our congratulations and best wishes to those lucky winners. And now to rally. Next Sunday, the 25th, sees the start of this year's Lombard RAC Rally, the last round of the World Rally Championship. This year, the rally is based in Harrogate, and the 180 or so competitors have to negotiate nearly 1,500 miles in total, and they have to fight it out over some 350 miles of special stages. The big change this year is the rally will not go into the forests of Wales. All the special stages are in central and northern England and in Scotland. Here's the overall shape of the rally. Day one is the traditional Spectators' Day with 8 special stages in Yorkshire and the East Midlands with an overnight stop in Harrogate. Day 2 it gets tougher because it takes the cars into the North Yorkshire forests, again with an overnight in Harrogate. Day 3 takes the field up through Northumberland and Kielder and across the border into Scotland before they pull into Newcastle. The 4th and final day is a big one. It takes the cars back into Kielder and the Scottish forests and down through the tough Lake District stages before they pull into Harrogate for the finish. So how do the drivers stand in the championship? Well, Carlos Sainz, the Spanish driver, has already well and truly won the driver's crown. Indeed, he had it sent up over a month ago at San Remo. He's accumulated a massive 132 points. Behind him lie Didier Auriol on 87 points and Kankkunen with 85. The Spanish driver's brilliant season in the Toyota Celica GT4 injected a much-needed level of competition into the Manufacturers' Championship this year, but it still wasn't enough to topple the leaders Lancia, who won the title for a remarkable 4th year in succession. Mickey Biasione, the Italian driver in the Lancia and of course world champion in 1988 and 1989, had a rather quieter season than normal for him anyway, mainly because of recurring back trouble. The great news is he will be taking part in the Lombard RAC this year for the very first time as part of a strong Lancia team that includes Kankkunen, seeded number 3, and Didier Auriol, seeded number 11. So what about last year's winner Pentti Ricola? Well, he's moved from Mitsubishi to Ford and he's been busy gearing up to repeat his cliffhanging performance. We tracked him down as he was preparing his pace notes for one of this year's stages. Yes, you heard correctly, pace notes on the Lombard RAC, because for the first time ever they've fallen into line with the rest of the world and they're allowing practice on all their stages. Tony Mason takes up the story.
Pace notes are the shorthand records which enable the crews to drive flat out through the special stages. To protect the forests during practice, the RAC insists that the drivers use ordinary road cars and limit their speed to 20 miles an hour. Taking 9 days to complete, it's a tedious and time-consuming process, the crews covering each stage twice. Professionals like Pentti and his Irish co-driver Ronan McNamee insist that the car is as close as possible to the rally car, so that every bend will look the same, hence this left-hand drive Ford Cosworth road car.
200.
The bends are graded by numbers. 1 means straight and 7 means a right angle.
Junction left.
Other people use different systems. In fact, some have the complete
7.
opposite to Pentti. But whatever the language, it gives the driver a mental picture of the road ahead when they come to drive it in anger on the rally itself.
Into junction. Right. 6. Stone inside.
Of course, not everybody has the time or money to take advantage of this change to the rules. So for those club drivers who make up the bulk of the entry, the organisers have provided notes made by a top professional navigator. Pace notes should increase speeds by up to 5%, so it's a safe bet that this year's rally will be the fastest ever.
50, junction left 7. Into crest 1, 400, left 2, brake, and left 6. Suddenly junction, right 6 minus. And 200, junction left 7.
That's the car, of course, the 4x4 Sierra Cosworth, on which Ford are building all their rallying hopes. They've been a long time in the wilderness since their all-conquering days of the 70s. The cars for the Lombard RAC are being prepared at their base at Boreham in Essex. No resources are being spared. Stuart Turner, their boss of motorsport, is determined that nothing shall be overlooked. And on a practice day there, Tony Mason asked him why they were going back into rallying in such a big way.
A couple of years ago, we did some market research into what branches of motorsport influence people, and the research showed that Formula One is the place to be for sheer publicity. But if you want to convince people you're helping to develop better production cars, road cars, rallying's the place to be.
Why is it the Sierra that was selected?
Because we've got the Cosworth version with the four-wheel drive, and we're finding that although first sight it may seem to be a slightly bigger car compared to, for instance, the Escort, which was so successful, but it does appear to be a well-balanced car. It's user-friendly. The drivers like the balance of the car, and I think it's going to be quite competitive.
Well, let's talk about drivers. You seem to have changed your policy slightly and gone for the British drivers, which is very refreshing.
We've gone for Malcolm Wilson for two reasons. One, because he's up there amongst the top drivers in the world, and secondly, because we have to recognise that if we want to get publicity in the British market, which is important to us, we do need a British driver. So we're glad to have Malcolm for those two reasons. As far as Pentti Irikala is concerned, he came on board because he won the RAC Rally last year and rang me the day after to say, to my surprise, that he hadn't got a drive fix for this year, so we were very quick to sign him up for the 3 events we've got in 1990.
Now, how do you like the Sierra?
I think it's a terrific car. I mean, we've done a lot of work. We've been a lot of places testing this year, and I'm really happy with the progress. And I think, you know, we've come on in leaps and bounds in terms of getting the car more competitive.
And the four-wheel drive, obviously, a big difference.
It's a tremendous difference. I mean, the first time I got in the car, I couldn't believe it. You know, you thought, well, there's people that talk about turbo lag and that, but, you know, just to get into a car with four-wheel drive and the traction and the braking is just, it's incredible. It's a great feeling again to be back. Know that you're going to be in a competitive car.
Now, there's something new in the car, the 7-speed gearbox. Tell us about that.
Well, we're all very excited here about it. I mean, I don't know how much advantage it's going to give us in terms of outright speed, but the fact that we've got a clutchless gear change again is a big advantage over the having to use a clutch, which is advantage then that you can use the left foot braking technique a lot more.
Another top British driver is that fiercely competitive Welshman David Llewellyn, driving a Toyota Celica. And calling the corners for him this year, as always, is his long-standing co-driver Phil Short, who is no doubt hoping for a very good result this year, his last Lombard RAC before he retires from top-class competition. Louise Aitken-Walker has just won the newly created Ladies World Championship, despite a terrible crash in the Rally of Portugal. Now, that horrendous crash didn't seem to affect her driving, as she managed to stay ahead of her arch-rival Paolo Di Martini from Italy. Louise always makes a big impact in the Lombard RAC, and this year, competing with her co-driver Christina Thorner, she's driving an Astra. So, in a big field that's very, very competitive, who else should we be looking out for?
Harry Vatanen will again be driving a Mitsubishi Galant, hopefully not quite like this. After a year combining rallying with desert racing, Vatanen, seeded number 4, is very much a force to be reckoned with. Marco Alén, with 19 wins, has won more World Championship rallies than anyone else. After 16 years with Lancia, he's now been lured away by the Banbury-based Subaru team. And his last drive for Mazda before moving to Mitsubishi, Timo Salonen, seeded number 6 this year. Driving a Subaru like this on his very first rally for Formula One Grand Prix star Derek Warwick.
What do you think of the handling of the 4x4 Subaru?
It's nice. I mean, we've done a few days now, and I quite like it. You know, it's obviously completely different to anything I'm used to, so it is kind of difficult. But the car is good, and my biggest problem is when I get into a little bit of trouble, is instead of easing off, is to change down and accelerate through. That's difficult. The brain doesn't really want to do that anymore.
What brain?
What brain?
Number 10 is Hannu Mikkola, acknowledged as the world's most successful rally driver. At 48, he's the grand old man of the sport, and with more power in his Mazda this year, he could win his 5th Lombard RAC. But the man that everyone will be looking out for is the new world champion, Carlos Sainz. Highly gifted all-round sportsman, Carlos fenced and skied for his country and became Spanish squash champion at the age of 17. He turned to motorsport a year later, and after learning his trade in Renault 5 turbos, graduated to top-class competition, twice winning the Spanish championship.
You've spent a lot of time away from home this year.
This year I think we have been about 320 days outside of Spain. That is quite a lot of, if you can imagine.
But it was all worth it when you got to San Remo in October.
Yeah, San Remo was the greatest moment when we get the championship.
But you nearly went out of the rally.
San Remo. We have a little roll, and we could continue, lost in about 2 minutes 20 seconds, but we could manage and finish the rally. In third position, that was the position that we needed to take mathematically the championship.
What did it feel like when you knew you'd won it, the championship?
It's a very good feeling, as you can imagine.
It was Ford who gave Carlos his first chance in international rallying, but impatient to drive a four-wheel drive car, he moved to Toyota in 1989. But things didn't go quite as planned.
First year with Toyota was difficult. We have some reliability problems. But the end of the year was quite okay. Everybody knows about 90.
Well, this year, yes, just went so well. And what about that win in Finland, the first non-Scandinavian ever to win the 1,000 Lakes Rally?
This rally was for me, was the most important victory. Finnish drivers are very special as well, and I think to get the first position in this rally for me it was a very happy day.
And of course, back to last year's Lombard RAC rally, we all remember that drive very well.
Thank you. It was very enjoyable for me, and I think it was a nice rally, nice fight, and by bad luck at the end we have a problem with the prop set and we lost about 2 minutes and a half.
You were bitterly disappointed.
I was really disappointed. I was incredibly disappointed after this problem. I was feeling very, very bad because it was 2 stages to the end. I tell you, we were risking a lot to get the victory, and when this problem came, I couldn't believe it.
Now this year is the first year with pace notes. How do you feel about that?
My feeling was that it was a pity. I will prefer to have this kind of blind rally that gives to RAC rally special meaning. But anyhow, I still thinking that this rally, even with these 2 times going through the stages, I think will be, with 1,000 Lakes, one of the, for me, are the 2 best in the World Championship.
Well, this is one car that probably won't be in this year's Lombard RAC Rally, and this one certainly won't, the 6R4. They're both from the Heritage Collection here. But our crews will be out on the road, getting all the best of the rally action. Of course, we can't guarantee to be on the right bend at the right time for the most dramatic incidents. So if you should happen to video something crucial, please call us on this special Harrogate number, 0423 527 237. That's 0423 527 237. With any luck, your shot could be in our programme next week, giving our report on the whole rally. But I have to leave you tonight with some sad news, because we've just learned that our friend and colleague Tom Boswell died earlier this week. We'd like to extend our sympathies to all his family. So until next week then, with our special report on the rally, drive safely and goodbye.